Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about an index card RPG one-shot that I just completed. Excuse me. And it was a U.S. fighter jet flight, which is a small grouping of fighter jets, versus a dragon. All right, and so that was really the entire concept for the game. It was, what if a small group of U.S. fighter jets fought a dragon? What would happen? Right, and this index card, and so I used Index Card RPG. It's a game created, second edition. I used Index Card RPG second edition. It's created by Runehammer Games. It's a really fantastic game. It's one of my top games right now. It's super simple to run. It's extremely fast to do the game setup. It runs smooth as silk. It's just really a fantastic system. It has a lot of advantages for a lot of reasons. Oh, excuse me, sorry. So I just wanted to tell you about how the game went and some of the advantages and disadvantages we ran into. It was a really interesting game. We had a lot of fun. It was really a full success. I think at the macro level, just reporting with the game, I had a full turnout of players. We had 5 players played, which is, and that's a full table for us. We were like, that's premium. We don't really like to run with much more than that. The players were really engaged. We got to tell an entire exciting story. We got to see what would happen if a flight, a small grouping of U.S. fighter jets, fought a dragon, right? And we completed the game in 2.5 hours, which is, again, that's kind of a big deal to me. I'm really very into this idea that we need to get tabletop role-playing game sessions down to less than the time of an average movie, and that the 4-hour game absolutely has to die, right? And I'm trying to do this as much as possible at my table, right? So real quick, I just want to talk about why I decided to run this game. And I actually kind of built this game, like it really had to be built from the ground up. So of course the rules system came from Index Card RPG. It's an incredibly flexible system. You can run almost anything with it. And one of the benefits of that game is if any of your players even have any familiarity with Dungeons & Dragons or have played Dungeons & Dragons, it is a Dungeons & Dragons parallel game. Like, it runs parallel to what Dungeons & Dragons does. So it hasn't stolen any of the rules or any of the shine from Dungeons & Dragons, but it runs alongside Dungeons & Dragons, so that anybody who's ever played Dungeons & Dragons, Index Card RPG has its own unique mechanics, but they don't feel alien, and they're very much matched to what happens in a Dungeons & Dragons game, but much faster. So Index Card RPG really increases the rate of play from a Dungeons & Dragons game. All right, so the reason why I ran this game was the Dragon Magazine cover number 143. So Dragon Magazine is a classic magazine that came from specifically, it was put out by TSR, and then at its premium days, in its best days, it was being put out by TSR. And so it came out I think it started in the 70s, it continued through the 80s and the 90s. As soon as you hit the 2000s, Dragon Magazine gets weird, and there's different companies start getting involved, and those are the years of its decline, right? I think Dragon is still published today, but it's not actually published as a magazine. It's a website. So it's essentially a collection of articles put onto a website, which in my opinion isn't a magazine. That's a really good website, right? And you're just grouping the content there. I love websites. I think they're very helpful, but I don't really consider them magazines, right? So in some ways, Dragon Magazine, certainly Dragon Magazine really is not in the same form it was. But in its heyday, Dragon Magazine had these amazing covers with some of the best artists in the world. And there was this one cover, it's on Dragon Magazine number 143. You can just Google Dragon 143 and it will come up. Dragon Magazine cover 143, and you'll be able to see this image. And what the image was of course the word dragon at the very top, but it was nighttime. So the view of the cover was, it was nighttime, and it was a painting, and the painting is essentially, the picture is your perspective is you are looking out from the cockpit of a U.S. fighter jet, right? And on that fighter jet, and right there, looming in the cockpit, is a dragon, right? And that dragon's actually breathing fire and kind of sweeping its breath weapon up toward your fighter jet, right? But also, you can see like the pilot's got those red covers flipped up, and is ready to shoot off its missiles or fire its machine guns, and it's so super aggressive, really tight. When you see the image, it just strikes you, and it's like fighter jet versus dragon, and it's just super iconic, incredibly well executed. It's one of the most powerful Dragon magazine covers ever made. It's really amazing. And I think, I think I was between like 12 and 15 when I saw that cover for the first time. When I picked it off my FLGS, bought it with cash right after its release, and to this day, I can remember picking that magazine up off the shelves and just holding it in my hands. It was really an incredible cover. And I think ever since then, I wanted to know what would happen if U.S. fighter jets fought a dragon, right? And so with that said, it's always been in my head, so I built this game to determine what would happen, right? So the first thing that I did to build the game was I set the parameters, right? And so the parameters for the game were, so it was U.S. fighter jets, right? But there was kind of a story on what, which U.S. fighter jets would be assisting, right? So, before I tell you which ones, I'll explain why you would have a situation where U.S. fighter jets were fighting dragons. So I had to set that up in the game, right? So, I tell the players in the beginning, each of you will be playing a U.S. fighter jet pilot that will have one fighter jet of one type. So you don't really choose. So none of the players chose their fighter jet. They had a F14A Tomcat, right? That was their fighter jet. And they are all coming out. They are all U.S. Navy pilots in the year 1986. Okay, so this is like still when the Cold War was going on, right? Or like very near the end of the Cold War, right? So it's 1986 U.S. fighter jets, U.S. fighter pilots, Navy specifically, and they are all flying F-14A Tomcats. Okay. I also explained the loadout. So all the fighter jets have the same loadout. They have Phoenix long-range missiles, Sidewinder medium-range missiles, and then they also had homing missiles. I'm forgetting the name on that one right now. And then they also had a Vulcan machine gun. Okay, and so that was the loadout. That's all the weapons on the Tomcat, and that's really and in some ways that's all the player characters have to fight the dragon, right? So the players now understand what type of character they're running, right? And they still have some decisions on their player character in that they can choose their player character's name, their player character's call sign. They could choose their player character's hometown, which has to be a U.S. hometown because they're all U.S. fighter jets. And then they can choose one unique visual, something that makes their character, visually distinct. Like they can have red hair, or they could have a scar on their face, or something like that, right? So that's their character, right? So then I actually took the time to explain to them how and why they were in a situation where they were actually, why would these U.S. fighter jets actually be fighting a dragon, right? And so I did the setup. So here's the setup for the game. So essentially, the player characters are on Earth, and they are serving as U.S. Navy fighter jets, right? Fighter pilots, right? Then, in addition to that, on the there's another world, right, disconnected from Earth, but on essentially two different universes, and the second universe is Thracion, and I explained Thracion is a media magic fantasy world, exactly like very, very similar to Forgotten Realms, right? So anything that you would expect to see in Forgotten Realms, you will see in Thracion, right? So kings and queens, realms, elves, dwarves, humans, right? Swords, magic, all of it. Dragons, all of it, right? So Thracion is a medium magic, Dungeons and Dragons esque world, fantasy world, right? And that is separated from, from the earth, right? Of course, right? Well, on Thracion, there is a king, there's a king and a queen, and those king and queens rule the world, rule the realm of Silm, okay? So the king is King Zaquet, and the queen is Queen Avanch, right? And they rule this realm, right? Well, King Zaquet is a very powerful king, and he actually has 5 orders of wizards that serve him. And each order sends a point of contact person, kind of a lead wizard, to... Actually, it's not the lead wizard. It's just a point of contact person. But so within his court, he has 5 wizards who serve him as both magical power and as counsel, right? Well, one of these orders has essentially like an oracle, a wizard who is constantly seeking out what's going to happen in the future. And her name is Priawin, right? And so she does all these things, divinations, these divinations in order to tell the future, right? Well, she runs to she leaves their wizard school, runs to the court, talks to the point of contact person, and is brought before the king, King Zaquet, and says, listen, in 2 years from now, the dragon Venanguius, Safe, S-A-P-H-E, is going to attack Spire, your capital city, right? You will be here in the city, and so will Queen Avanch. The dragon will absolutely destroy the city. There are 10,000 people in the city. The dragon will kill 7,500 people. The vast majority of your... The vast majority of your fighting forces will be destroyed, and then you will lose. And because this devastating blow has been dealt to your capital, your personal ability to rule will be put into disarray. You will not have the power that you use today to rule, and our kingdom will be overrun. So it will be the death of 7,500 people in this city. The city will be destroyed, and you will lose your kingship, and our realm will fall. That is my prophecy. It will happen in 2 years. Now, Priawin has given 6 prophecies to the court. Every single one of them, right, was heeded by Zaquet. 2 of them he actually allowed to come true, just to see if because they were minor, kind of more minor. He allowed them to come true, but 4 others the king did things to stop them from coming true, right? And so the king does the same with this. King Zaquet says, well, I'm not losing my kingship. And so what he does is he specifically says, goes to all of his knights and all of his wizards and say, what can we do to stop this dragon? They do a study of the dragon, and they realize who the dragon is returning after 600 years, okay? And they say, oh, we got a problem. There is nothing in this realm that's going to stop that dragon. We can actually harm him quite a bit, but the reality is, if we were to fight him, if we were to fight this dragon with everything we have in this kingdom, we think that what Priawin said is exactly what would happen, right? And so he's like, oh man, nothing in my kingdom will stop this. And so he says, okay, well, I got an idea. I want you to start searching. I know that some of you are planeswalkers and have walked to other universes, other planes of existence. Well, I want you to start searching right now for other planes of existence. Planes, not planes. Oh, it's spelled the same, but these are like planes of existence rather than flying planes. So he says, I want you to search planes of existence and find me heroes, right, who will save our realm. And so that's what the wizards do. They search all kinds of different realms, and they find 1986 Earth with F14 Tomcats, these insanely destructive flying machines which the wizards are like, you know what, that'll do the trick. Let's bring them over. So what they do is, with 2 years to go, they send 5 wizards over to Earth. Those wizards use doppelganger spells to make themselves look. They take 5 U.S. Navy navigators, take information from their minds using spells, and then carefully send them over to Thrycion and switch place with them. So 5 U.S. navigators for F-14 Tomcats are essentially kidnapped and sent to Thrycion. This is done very, very gently. None of them are harmed. Their skills for flying for navigating F-14 Tomcat are stolen, but the rest of their memories are left intact, and the rest of their intelligence are left intact. And then these navigators these wizards, posing as U.S. navigators using doppelganger spells, have 2 years to convince 5 pilots to fly at one juncture 2 years from now, to fly their ship, to fly their plane through a portal from Earth into Thrycion, fight this dragon, and then the wizards will open up the portals and bring them back. Okay? All right. So at that point, the pilots, so essentially the player characters are then playing the 5 U.S. Navy fighter pilots that have agreed to say, okay, we're going to take our F-14 Tomcats, F-14A Tomcats, fight this dragon, and save these 7,500 people and save this realm, right? So all the player characters, they're pre-bought in. So basically, at the beginning of the game, you're not really entertaining, oh, I don't want to do this, right? Like, this is the game, right? And so, and you can explain, and I explain this to players, and I'm like, if that's not your thing, you're welcome not to play. But that is the structure of the game, right? So you are assisting these navigators. And actually, I kind of invited the players at the very beginning to determine their relationships with their navigators. Are they really good friends, or do they not? Have they grown to be friends over the 24 months, or are they really indifferent to the navigator, to the doppelganger wizard navigators, but they really are moved by the plight of this realm, and they don't want those 7,500 people to die, or is it some combination of the two, right? So this is the structure, right? And so when we start, the player characters know that very soon, like literally within 10-20 minutes of the game starting, those planes are going to go, they're going to fly their planes through those portals, and they will be fighting the dragon right quick, right? So they have really about 10-20 minutes max on Earth, and then they're going to fly through a portal, and they will immediately begin approach to a massive ancient dragon that has intents on destroying the city. And as soon as they engage with that dragon's going to be intent on destroying them, right? So that's the setup. We actually played the game, and I would definitely really like to tell you how that game turned out. I will put that into a separate video, but I just wanted to let you know we used Index Card RPG to run this. One of the things I wanted to talk about real quick before I end this one is just how fast character creation is. So the character sheets for this game were 5 pages long, right? But they were but shockingly, it was extremely fast to fill them out and get ready to play, right? So basically the first sheet is Index Card RPG's 6-point character build. So Index Card RPG has this amazing process for building character sheets. You get 6 points, and you split those 6 points among traditional Dungeons & Dragons attributes. It's literally Strength, Dex, Con, Int, Wiz, Cha, right? And you get 6 points. You can put 1 point goes into Charisma, and essentially that's if you put 1 point into Charisma, you have a 12 Charisma, right? Now the game doesn't deal with it in that way, but it maps exactly. So the points that you're putting in are really the bonuses you would normally get in Dungeons & Dragons. So you have 6 points in bonuses to put across your attributes. There's two other things that you're doing, right? And that is armor, right? So every point that you put into armor, it makes it harder to hit you, okay? And then the last one is effort. When you put points into effort, every effort is basic effort. That would be like if you punch somebody with your fist. Weapon effort, which is if you strike them with a mundane weapon. Magic is a spell or a magical weapon. And then last is ultimate. And ultimate is when you do crit damage, right? Now, basic damage is D4. Weapon damage is D6. Magic damage with spell or with a magical weapon is D8, and then your ultimate, which is only used when you crit, and in a few other circumstances, is a D12, right? And so it's incredibly fast and super simple, and it's just really elegant. And literally, I spent 5 minutes telling everybody, you have your 6 points to distribute, and then you know, for your character, I need your character name, I need your call sign, I need your city, and I need your unique visual. And that's it, right? Now the other 3 pages, one was for choosing a flying style with whether it was interceptor or air superiority, and then you got benefits based off that. And then the last 2 pages was, one of the pages was the loadout, was the long range missiles, medium missiles, homing missiles, 2 boxes for each one because you only had 6 missiles, and then an entire page with boxes on it for the Vulcan machine gun, which has 600 rounds, and you fire it in 50 round blocks, right? And so you would just check off how many you did, right? So that was the whole sheet. It was super fast, super simple. I'm a huge fan of Index Card RPG. I can't recommend it enough. This game was super fun to do the setup for, and on another video, I'll let you know what happened within the game. Thank you very much. Take care.